It's not a sound you want to hear out in the woods, especially among the tallest trees in the world, you know. I'll be paying attention. Okay. Hi folks, it's Switchback. Today's video is all about how to use a Sawyer Squeeze water filter. All of this information also transfers to the Sawyer Micro, the Sawyer Mini, but I personally have the Sawyer Squeeze. I like the flow rate on it better. So for that little bit of a weight penalty, it's worth it to me to have this one. The Sawyer Squeeze, the Sawyer Mini, and the Sawyer Micro remove 99.99999% of bacteria, including E. coli, Vibrio cholerae, and Salmonella typhi. It also removes 99.9999% of protozoa, so Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and they remove 100% of microplastics. They do not remove iron, sulfur, or other chemical or simple compounds. That includes pesticides, gasoline, etc. They also don't remove viruses, which are not an issue in the United States, but if you're traveling abroad, that's definitely a consideration to make. Therefore, the Sawyer filters can only do so much about flavor. So that is why a lot of people will carry something like, this is a generic version of Neo, Crystal Light packets, such as these ones. And I have been carrying Kool-Aid on the trail my whole life, so I stick with the classics. The claimed weight on the website for the Sawyer filter is 2.5 ounces. That's probably what it is when it's completely bone dry and it hasn't been used at all yet. Mine has been sitting for a couple of weeks before weighing it today, and you can see here what it weighs. I'm also showing the weight of the syringe and of the bag that comes with it, and the CNOC bag, which I will talk about a little bit more later, but I carry that instead of the Sawyer bags for a minor weight penalty. Again, I'll explain that in a minute. There are various adapters that you can use in order to use it as an inline filter or to use it with a 5-gallon bucket, and those are available on the Sawyer website. I've had my Sawyer filter for probably 7 years now, and so the kit that it comes with has probably changed a little bit. Mine came with a bag and a syringe, and these are the bags that they come with. I know that they haven't changed a whole lot, and most people prefer not to use these. These pouches tend to leak or break, so you don't want to use a whole lot of pressure when you go to squeeze it. And a leaking bag can easily contaminate your drinking water. If there's a little bit of water leaking out around it and you're pouring it into a bottle, that can be a big problem. I found that these don't work very well in a lake, for example, because they just don't want to open up. They might work better under a running water source. Some people say to blow it up like this before putting it into a water source. Great, except my concern is that it doesn't take much Giardia for you to get sick. And so if this is your dirty water bag, that you could very easily get Giardia doing that. So I would not recommend it. I hate these bags. Some people like to use SmartWater bottles because they do thread onto the end of the Sawyer filter. I don't like to use single use if I can avoid it. I really prefer to use something that I can use multiple times. It's a more green option. You also don't have to burp a bag the way that you have to burp the SmartWater bottles. A lot of people will use a CNOC bladder like this one. There's a 2-liter and a 3-liter option. I've also added a carabiner, and I'll show that in another video exactly why. One of the reasons I really like these CNOC bladders is just how big this opening is. It makes life so much easier. And then this one has a little slide across the top, just like an Osprey bladder does. But for a small weight penalty, I get to use this numerous times. It actually rolls up pretty small all by itself. It takes up a lot less space this way than a SmartWater bottle does. Before you collect water, you're gonna close up the cap at the bottom so that it doesn't all wash out. And you'll open it up from the top. Once you've collected your water, you want to dry it off so that that dirty water doesn't get into whatever you're filtering into. Next, open up the bottom here and go ahead and screw the dirty end of your Sawyer filter on. And that's going to be the one with the white right there. And you can see the arrows on the side here, and it says flow. So the arrow is pointing to the clean end. So the micro and the mini have a little bit different opening on this side. But this is how it works with the Sawyer Squeeze. And then you'll go upside down with it, and you can see the water coming out like so. So you can do that into whatever reservoir you're using, into an Algene, into a SmartWater bottle, etc. When you're done, let's say that you still have water in that bladder and you want to hold on to it for later. Close it up, set it aside, shake out your filter from both ends. And then I store it inside of a bandana so that it doesn't leak all over my stuff. The Sawyer should be flushed before every trip so that it wets all the fibers inside, and it should also be flushed before and after storing it for longer periods of time. If it has a slow flow rate despite flushing it, you're gonna wanna soak it in hot water not to exceed 140 degrees for about 2 hours, and then go ahead and try back flushing it again. If you've been putting water through it that has a high mineral content, then soak it in vinegar for half an hour and then forcefully back flush it with lots of hot water, again, not to exceed 140 degrees. If you stored a dirty filter, soak it in hot water, again, not to exceed 140 degrees, let it sit for a few days, and then back flush it several times. Anytime that you're back flushing your filter, you need to use a lot of force so that the water doesn't take the path of least resistance and then eventually slow and clog. According to the Sawyer website, it's okay if the Sawyer filter freezes if it has never been wet, never been used. Anytime after that, if it freezes, it needs to be replaced. I personally will store mine wrapped up in a bandana in my pocket, or if I am going to bed at night, I'll actually keep it in my sleeping bag with me. As for reviewing it, I really don't feel like I can give it a fair shot because I haven't compared it with other filters. I've never used a platypus or a Katadyn or anything like that. And so I have been using the Sawyer with Aquamira drops as a backup for about 7 years. And this has never failed me once. Next week's video will be all about choosing a water source when you're out in the backcountry. And if you like this kind of stuff, be sure to subscribe below, hit that like button so that more people get access to this video, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Bacteria, including Giardia, and except Giardia is not a bacteria.